Hey, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. On this show, we talk to innovators, we talk to creative types, we talk to entrepreneurs, we talk to people who have radical, crazy, wacky ideas that they want to share with the world. And a lot of times I think that everyone who I've talked with is so gosh darn passionate about their idea, about their product, about their prototype, about the things that they made, that it's really inspirational. And, in 2015, for a long time, actually, for a couple of years, since 2012, I started my blog, crowdcrux.com. I started putting out teachings and findings and things that I was learning about the industry. And, I decided to start the podcast in 2015. And the reason was that I was hearing about incredible successes. I was hearing about techniques that were working to get funding that I wanted to share with my readers. And there's no easy way to do that. And I for some reason, I don't know why, I guess that people just don't believe sometimes what they read online. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because there's a lot of crazy stuff online. But for me, just trying to authentically share free teachings and education, and 99% of what I share is free, it was a little frustrating. And I realized the only way I could kind of get through and punch through and share that would be by you hearing from the horse's mouth that this thing works. So I try to document that on this show. And specifically today, it's always cool as well when we get a listener of the podcast who comes on and also shares how they were able to be successful with crowdfunding. I think it really validates the entire reason why I started this show, which is to help people get funding from the crowd. So there are so many ways to do that. And on this show, we talk about Kickstarter, we talk about Indiegogo, we talk about, GoFundMe, we talk about charity fundraising, we talk about nonprofit crowdfunding, real estate crowdfunding, etc. And one of the things that's kind of emerging onto the scene is this new thing called regulation crowdfunding, also known as equity crowdfunding. This is also investment crowdfunding, if you want to put it that way, where people can actually invest in your startup or invest in your company, and you can get funding from the crowd that way. Now, this is kind of like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, but the difference is that these people that are backing your project are actually investors in your company. And you can also use those funds the way that you would want. And it might seem complicated at first, but I will share with you in this episode, and you'll hear from an individual how it's actually not as complicated as you might think. And this person with no prior experience, who is a filmmaker, was able to figure this out. And if they can figure this out, you can also. So when it comes to this project, they basically decided to create an entire new film about escaping Ohio and turn this short film into a full-length, film. So you're going to hear how basically a creative individual, a person who's putting out really cool, indie kind of work and really cool films, and has so many ideas to share when it comes to storytelling, etc., how they were able to raise over 6 figures with a WeFunder regulation crowdfunding campaign. So they've raised specifically over 100K, 155, 236,000 using this new method of crowdfunding. So, Jessica came on the podcast and she shared everything that went into this, what really worked well for her, the things that helped get results. And I think that it's so cool when we have a guest that is just that transparent. And I think one of the reasons is it's just kind of like paying it forward. So you can hear and you can listen to this show, you can take some notes, you can write this down, and you can apply it to your own campaign. And hopefully then you come on the podcast when you're successful with crowdfunding and you share some of those lessons and those teachings. And you can always go to my website, crowdcrux.com. I think it's on my About section. You can find my email and you can reach out to me with your story and, for consideration for being on the show. So you're going to discover a couple of things this lesson today. Number one, you're going to hear about how to actually do one of these campaigns. What does it take? What do you need? How did they get people to take action? Why do people rally around this? And how even if you're a creative type in the arena, if you're a creative type in the audience, this is something that you can use in order to get funding from the crowd. So super exciting, and it's going to come up in just a second. I also do have a link for you today. If you want to kind of get up to speed with a little bit of equity crowdfunding and learn about this, I got a great book called Equity Crowdfunding Explained, which you can check out on Audible, and I'll share a link with you in just a second. And also, if you go through this link and you get a free 30-day trial of Audible, you can also get a copy of the book, which is pretty nice as a deal. So you can go and check out this link, and you can go and see this for yourself at crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/equity audio, crowdcrux.com/equity audio. Just go to that link and you can download the Audible version of this book. In addition, if you want to learn more about this, I'm going to share a way to work with me at the end of the show. But that being said, let's really hop right into this and let's discover how this individual, this first-time financier of a film, how they were able to raise 6 figures from the crowd using regulation crowdfunding. And it's coming up right after this. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. Fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we are speaking with a six-figure WeFunder campaign. This is for Escaping Ohio, which is a really interesting film. And we have the creator today here in the house. Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Do you think we could get started? Maybe you could just tell listeners a bit about the backstory of this project and just kind of paint a picture a little bit of the story there.
Yeah, for sure. So we started Escaping Ohio as a short film, which once we wrapped the short, we decided we want to turn into a feature, which we did at the beginning of last year. And Escaping Ohio is a coming of age rom-com about two 18-year-olds facing adulthood in Ohio. This girl, Sam, longs for new adventures in California, while her best friend, JJ, has always dreamt of building his life in their small town. And when she gets this opportunity to leave for California, he dares her that he can prove why Ohio is worth sticking around for.
And when it comes to you in this project, how long have you been working on the short film before it really came to light?
So the short we started right at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. I think the idea got brought to life in April, and we worked on it till we shot in October of 2020. And then, like I said, that was a 4-day shoot. And when we wrapped, that's when we decided we wanted to turn it into a feature. We thought at first that we were going to take the usual route of, taking the short to film festivals and talking to investors and stuff. But when January came around last year, I just had this gut feeling that we were supposed to do it last year. And so took the big leap and developed it within 8 months and shot it in last August.
Awesome. Congrats. Have you produced any films in the past or is this your first one?
This is my first feature film. I've done a few shorts, but the short film for Escaping Ohio was my first project we raised money for, which was on Seed and Spark. And that was only a budget of 44. And then, so this is my first feature, which again, obviously while we're here, we raised on WeFunder for, and my first time seeking investors. And we raised 155.2 thousand.
Congratulations again. So with Seed and Spark, we talk a lot about Kickstarter, Indiegogo on this podcast. Did you like Seed and Spark? Did you have a good experience with that? What was that campaign like?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. We actually hit our goal in only 6 days. And it was one of those things, both with Seed and Spark and WeFunder, where I never really knew where the money was going to be coming from. I had my little ideas here and there, but then it always just surpasses my expectations. But Seed and Spark, I really liked their platform and how they allow you to set it up. I liked that it was very film based, whereas Kickstarter, has a lot of different things, not just film. And with Indiegogo, I don't like that there's no goal. With Seed and Spark, I liked the idea that you have to hit 80%, because I think Kickstarter, you have to hit 100%. So it being my first time doing crowdfunding, I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. So I liked the idea of the 80% as well.
And for those people that supported the Seed and Spark campaign, I think you said it was over 4,000, right? That you raised.
Yeah, we raised our goal was 4,000 and we raised 4,400.
What did those people get? Did they get to go to the premiere, or did they get to watch it, or how did you involve them initially with the short?
Yeah, with the short film one, we had different incentives starting as low as $10, I believe, and that was just like a social media shout out. And we had some other incentives, like I have 3 dogs, and so I would take pictures with little thank you signs because they're very good models. So that was a small incentive. For a bigger incentive, we would send out a private link once the short film was done. For an even bigger, I think the $50 incentive, they got a thank you in the credits, and then the $100 incentive, they would get a signed Polaroid from the film, because that's an aesthetic that happens throughout the film is they take Polaroids on this Ohio adventure. So we sent a couple people the signed Polaroids, and then I think it was $500 was an associate producer credit, and we had a few people claim that.
Very cool, very cool. So with these kind of short film projects, and you obviously do directing, writing, acting, right? Was this to kind of get the word out there about your career? Was it that you really connected with the story? What really got you passionate about that project?
Yeah. So, well, the first time when we went to sit down and write this, me and my creative partner, who is my co-star, co-producer, we just wanted to create because, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and we were frustrated, so we wanted to take something into our own hands. And we really built the story on the chemistry that was happening between. But when I sat down to write the script, I realized how personal it was to me. And the more I worked on it, the more I realized how passionate I was. So I think it was around July or June after starting the project in April that I realized I wanted to actually like raise funds for this and make it something worthwhile and not just because before we were just going to, ask for favors and do it on a lower budget. But I really wanted to go full throttle on it because I was really passionate about it.
Walk me through that moment when you really decided that you were gonna turn this into something that was much longer, right? A bigger work. What made that decision?
I think it was just a gut feeling. I don't remember the specific moment. I do remember the meeting where I told him, I think we should raise money for this. And I've never done that before, but I think I can do it. And again, I didn't really know where it was coming from. There was just this gut feeling that I really trusted that there was something special about this story and that it was worthwhile to put our time and money into and the energy of, getting that crowdfunding. And then I was listening to another filmmaker who talks a lot about crowdfunding, Diane Bell, and she was talking about too how like crowdfunding is not only just the money, but it also is the crowd part and building that community for your film and your audience. And we've, since we did crowdfunding for both the short and the feature, it really has shown that it's not just the money that's important. It's having that audience and crowd because it really feels like I've taken this whole entire journey of short to feature with these people around me. Because I do post a lot of it on Instagram, and it's been a really amazing journey of just following, or not so much following, but just going along all these obstacles and wins. And it's been really exciting to do that with my community and friends and people by my side.
Yeah, and I was looking through what people say on the page. You have people who say, you're incredibly and smart and talented. You have people who say they enjoyed the short. You have other people who say that you're just a creative force and passion behind the film is why they support it. So it sounds like there are a lot of reasons why people really got behind the WeFunder as well.
Yeah, I've actually had a few, some of my biggest investors. I've had my investors who put in either 10,000, 25,000, and 30,000 all tell me personally that the reason why they felt comfortable and wanted to put that much money in is because of the passion I have for the story and just how I talk about it. And it lights me up. And they just really gives them a lot of confidence that no matter what, I'll win with this project.
Now, for you, I mean, at least in my experience, a lot of creative types have difficulty with the business side, right? When it comes to raising capital and investment. But it sounds
Mhm.
like you just kind of plowed through it, right? So when it comes
Yeah.
to WeFunder, like where did that come from? How long did it take you even get this thing together? Can you kind of just share some details there? What made that choice and going through that process?
Definitely. So I actually listened to your one of your podcasts. I think you had Johnny on your podcast, right?
Johnny Price. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so I did a lot of research, and it was actually Jim Cummings who he was talking about WeFunder on a different podcast, and that's how I first found that platform. And I did more research listening to Jim talk about it on because he talked about it on a few platforms, and then I found that podcast of yours about Johnny talking about it. And I just went through their websites, their questions. There was a couple other films that were currently raising that I would follow and see what they were posting and how it was set up. And I really just liked the structure of how it was a lot like Seed and Spark, but
Mm.
investor based. Because I knew that I wanted to seek investors and not just crowdfunding because I was seeking such a high amount. And again, I wanted to, I felt like it was worth putting this much money into it. And me being from Ohio and all these connections I have and the resources I can use, I knew that we could make it look, the production value could look like it was made for a lot more than what it actually is because of that. Like, for example, our locations our fees were only $375, where I know films that spent like thousands and thousands of dollars on locations. So we've been able to save a lot. And so we were able to make it look like the film was made for a lot more. So that's why I said it at, our budget was around 150K. So that's what we ended up raising.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. I think, and as well, it does look pretty highly produced, just going through the page and all the graphics, etc. How do you feel like this was different from doing the Seed and Spark? Was it longer? Was there different things that were required you weren't aware of? How do you feel like it was different there?
Yeah. So with WeFunder, I do think that not everything's as apparent as it is once you're actually in the process. Because I didn't actually launch the campaign until early June, and we were going in production August 12th or August 13th was our first day of production. And so with Seed and Spark, you could do it a whole month before. Like we did the Seed and Spark. I think we ended it just 2 weeks before we went into production, and then you get the money just like 3 days later, and it was great. Everything was smooth, but it's not that smooth of a process with WeFunder. Well, first of all, you have to set up your LLC, which I did back in April. You have to get your financials. And even though you don't have any financials when you're a new LLC, you still have to hire someone and just show a balance statement and stuff like that. I had to file with the SEC, which was something I've never had to do before. And luckily, I had lawyers to help me with that process. But that was something that took a little bit longer than I thought it would. So I think with WeFunder, just everything took longer than I expected it to. So it actually came to the point where I learned, and I don't remember exactly if it was from the WeFunder platform itself or if it was through reading from another filmmaker's experience, but I found out that it was going to take 2 to 3 weeks to have the money hit your account. And so once I didn't find that out until June, and I was like, shoot, so that means, we have to hit our goal by a certain amount to get this money in our bank account. And then there was another thing I found out about after the launch was that your campaign has to be, or your Form C had to have been filed 21 days before you close your campaign. And so there was like a lot of logistics in terms of like all the days, and it all started adding up. And then getting to the point where early July, I was like, we're not going to be able to pull this money out before we go into production. And because this
Mm,
film is set over the summer in Ohio, and Ohio is not kind in terms of weather, so there was no way we could push production. It had to happen in August unless we waited until the following year, which I also just didn't feel like was right for
yeah,
our
that
film.
wouldn't be good. Yeah.
So I ended up having to find someone on our team who was able to lend us that money for a non-interest loan. And luckily, they felt comfortable doing it. And that was its own roller coaster because at first they were comfortable, but then they weren't sure because it got to the point where, it wasn't a for sure fact, like 100%
Mhm.
that we were going to actually get the money from WeFunder because you had to hit your minimum, where WeFunder's minimum is $50,000, but the filmmaker or the investor, or not the investor, the founder has to set their minimum. So we ended up setting our minimum for 91,000 because that's the minimum it took to make it through the end of production and pay people and for all the supplies and everything. But that meant if we don't hit 91,000, we don't receive the funds at all. And so when
Yeah,
our
that's scary.
yeah, exactly. And we went into production spending that money. And I just really had the confidence that I was going to do whatever it took to make that money. And I had to prove that to the person we were lending this money from because we only asked for a $50,000 loan, even though that was WeFunder's minimum. And they were a little weary about it once they learned that that wasn't the minimum to make the money. It was 91,000. But, we put contracts together to promise this person because there is something that WeFunder offers, and it's not the best option, but I forget exactly what it's called, but you can lower your minimum if need be. But the problem with that is then your investors don't really believe in you anymore because it's like, well, why are you lowering your minimum if
Yeah.
you know, you should just have, hit your minimum that you currently have that you had set. So
Yeah.
we didn't want to go about that option. And so we had in our contracts that we had like a certain amount of time to hit our minimum for this person to get their money back. And luckily everything worked out. I was making calls during production and speaking to investors, and we ended up hitting our goal the day after we wrapped. So we were able to
Exciting.
start. It's very, very exciting. And what a relief. Because also we could pay people on time and everything, except actually we did kind of get to pay people on time, but not the exact time that we had wanted to, because again, with everything taking longer than we thought it would, you can hit your goal on WeFunder, but not in the escrow account. And so that took another few weeks for us to hit up some of the investors who their money was pending, or they didn't, there was just like little things like they didn't sign their contract or they didn't convert their investment, or because at the first there's a lot of details to WeFunder, but within the first 50,000 it's just a reservation for an investment. So after the 50,000 you have to convert that reservation to an investment, and it's just a small little step, but not everyone does it. So you just have to give them that little reminder that, hey, you got to just click on this button.
Mhm.
And so we had to go back through and reach out to people to do that. And then sometimes too, with the bigger investments, it takes a little bit longer to pend. So there was this one investment, I think we waited like 2.5 weeks for the bank to finally approve. So once we hit our money or our minimum in escrow, we were finally able to pull that money out and pay people.
Yeah, I'm sure that was anxiety producing too, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just, everyone was very patient with us on our team, and it was really an overall great experience. But I always just feel bad when, things are going slower than I'd like them to or than I thought they would.
So for you, I mean, having never raised investment before doing the 4K seed invest, so now being able to say you've done a campaign, six figure campaign, and gotten investors on board. What does that feel like? Did you expect that you would be able to pull that off? What did that really feel like for you?
Yeah, it's still it still hits me sometimes, and I get really excited about it because I grew up like, the house that I grew up in only it was worth, like, $88,000, so it's, kinda mind-blowing at sometimes, like, "Wow, I can't believe I raised that," but at the same time, I really didn't have a doubt that I would, but again, it was one of those things where, like, I didn't really know where the money was gonna come from, just for some reason, I had this feeling that no matter what, I'd make it happen, and, one of the people who had an amount for the short film, like an associate producer amount, I reached out to him thinking he might put in some money, and that was way more than I thought he would. And he ended up becoming our lead investor. And then that happened again with someone who I thought would maybe put in a few $100s. And so I sat there and I gave him my pitch, and it was just a small pitch around like 5 minutes. And he's like, "That sounds great. Put me in for 10K." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
Wow.
And it was just one of those things where, like, once you have to set up everything, make the LLC, set up the WeFunder, get everything in place. So that way, when the money is there and ready to present itself, it's like, boom, press this button and give it to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of setup, obviously, and I think for someone new as well, all those jargon and terms and accounting, like it's can seem like a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Did you find at all people to resonate with it when it comes to the WeFunder ecosystem, or is this mainly from your own marketing and the crowd that you sort of brought?
I think it's a mix of it. WeFunder states that, like, two-thirds is us, and then a third comes from WeFunder. And I think that it was probably pretty true. A lot of it did come from me and a few people on my team. But we did get a lot of people that just found it through the WeFunder platform. And
Mhm.
one of the bigger investors, he found it through the WeFunder platform, but he did reach out to me separately on LinkedIn and wanted to have a phone call because he was interested in investing more for a producing credit. And so I sent him the script. I had like an hour-long phone call with him just to talk about myself and the film. And he was one of the people who said he invested because of the passion I had for this project.
So cool,
And
so cool.
yeah, yeah. So he found it only because of WeFunder. So I did appreciate the platform brought in a lot of traction.
I think that's what I like most also about your story is that, you're accomplishing all of these different things and hitting these milestones. And at the same time, you're also kind of building your personal brand in the industry, right?
Yeah.
And people are reaching out to you, you're making connections, and it's really kind of all moving in this upward trajectory. I think that's really positive.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I actually have a few investors who are already asking about my next project because they wanna get in on it.
When it comes to the marketing side, was this really doing everything through social media and like posting on Instagram? Did you do anything in the way of marketing that you learned from the Seed and Spark or in general there?
With the Seed and Spark, I think social media was more helpful only because it allowed a lot of my community on Instagram to come for like a smaller amount. But I think that Instagram didn't help as much for the WeFunder only because the investments were asking for a lot more. I mean, I did have a couple people who put in at the smaller marks and would leave really, really nice comments. But in terms of the marketing for the WeFunder, I sent out a lot of emails. I am a bartender on the side, and it's a cigar club, so we do have some like, high worth people there. So I talked to some people there, and I actually had a screening of the short film for a lot of our regulars to see and just to celebrate the short film in general. But some people saw the short film there and really enjoyed it and wanted to support me and this film. And so I think marketing wise, also when you hit 100,000 on WeFunder, they start posting Facebook ads for you. So I've heard that a few people have seen it through that as well. So WeFunder helps you a little bit with the advertising. But I actually I didn't do too much on the marketing side. It was just really reaching out to people and talking to people in person as well.
So one question I had on the finance side, to what degree do you feel like people are aware of the business model as well when it comes to film and investing here? Is it that they want to see the project made, or are they also asking you questions behind the scenes about like the finances and what your plans are with making money from the film?
It's a mix of both. There's some people who wanted to see it made or just want to support me. And, those are usually at the lower marks of investments. But then there are people who want to see your business plan, what you're thinking for distribution, what connections you're making. And once I did start updating the investors too on some of the meetings I was having with distributors, and, we have someone who's interested in selling it now who has really good connections. Once I started informing them of that, we had some investors up their investments. So I think it was a mix of it. Like people they still want to see a return, or they believe in the project making money, but then other people just want to see it made and want to invest in a film and stuff like that. So I think it's a pretty well balanced of it.
Okay. So when it comes to you and the reasons why you did this, is your long-term vision to become, a mega director? Do you want to continue with the writing? Is it to be, world-renowned actress? Like what really is for you kind of driving this?
Yeah, I see myself making more films. I also see myself as an actress. I really enjoy both aspects of them, but I really just love creating my own work and stories that are important to me and that resonate with other people. And I also love making movies with my friends. I mean, I have amazing, talented friends who, we're all around the same age and are coming up together. And it feels really exciting to do that together and really just keep the creative control of these stories that we want to tell. And yeah, so I see myself on this trajectory. I kind of like Jim Cummings' career. I really look up to. He just continues to make his own films, and his third feature film he just got picked up by IFC. So yeah, I mean, I'm open
Awesome.
to what the universe brings me, but I kind of see it going that way.
So one of the other quick questions I had in terms of what we were talking about before the interview is you had this line saying that if you build it, they will come. I was really curious kind of what, prompted that kind of realization and what your thoughts were around that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has to go with what I was saying about some of the people who I didn't know would put in so much money, but it was just really building this exciting project, something that I was really, really passionate about. Our team is passionate about. We brought on a really amazing cast and had a lot of great crew members. And then again, just like building everything for the WeFunder in terms of like the LLC, all the specifics, setting the shoot dates, getting the correct equipment, getting the script together and everything in place. So completely just having everything ready so that way the investors, start pouring in, and then the money starts pouring in. And it's like they say, like the first 50,000 is, or the first third is the hardest to raise. But
Yeah.
once you get
Yeah.
that in, it really does. It felt so much smoother after that.
So one question on just the industry, I feel like no one is talking about this. The fact that you can do a WeFunder and also raise money for films, and it's just really the education hasn't percolated in the industry. Why do you think more people like you who are creative, talented, creating their own films? Why do you think they aren't? Are they just not aware of this kind of new way of raising funds? Is it growing and I'm just not aware of that? Just kind of curious on your thoughts there with the industry.
Yeah, I think that some people are becoming more aware of it. I think it is up and coming because I've spoken to a few people who have now asked me about it, who have heard about the platform, but they're just curious about it. I do think that a lot of artists, it's hard to balance that business and creative side, and not everyone wants to do that business side. And I do think there's a little bit of stigma around putting yourself out there and marketing and asking for money, but I don't think there's any need for that. I mean, I think if you look at it, the fact is you're building your audience, you're building this community who wants to help you. Forget the people who, feel weird about asking money or think you're like selling your film or selling out or whatever. Just like don't listen to them. I think there's no reason to have a stigma. I think it's great to put your project out there and put yourself out. But yeah, I do think that it's starting to become more of a thing. I'm seeing some more films on there.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, to see as well people that you admire that are doing creative work to become an investor in their project, like that's so freaking cool.
Right?
So I,
Yeah.
I would love to see just more people in the film industry that do have audiences already, right? Take advantage of this kind of fundraising.
Yeah, because then you get to, keep your own creative control. You get to have this big community that's, just supporting you. All the investors are so, so incredible. They're really genuinely nice people who, support you in this project. And yes, they want it to be successful, but they invested because they believe in you and because they think it's going to be successful.
100%. So where can people go to learn more about and kind of follow this journey that you're on, and particularly when, the full length film comes out and these updates?
Of course. So we have a website, escapingohio.com. If we sell it to a specific streaming network, I'm not sure how long that website will be up, but for now, that website's up. You can always follow me on Instagram at Jessica Michael Davis. I post lots of updates about my film, and we also have an Instagram for the film at Escaping Ohio Film.
Okay, awesome. And my final question for you is if you can speak directly to an audience member who's listening to this show, they're hearing you go from raising, 4K on Seed Invest, now doing this massive WeFunder campaign to now enabling your creative dreams to come true, right? And to be able to get something out there into the universe, which can affect people. What what would you say to that person? It could be a final tip. It could be a word of encouragement. It could be something you wish someone told you throughout the process, anything along those lines. And we can end on that note.
Just if it's resonating with you, just freaking go for it and don't look back. You'll figure it out along the way. And, that's what I did. There was a lot of things I didn't know about, but once you approach that, you figure it out and you move on to the next thing. And you just at the end of the day know that you can do it. There was a lot of scary moments, but they don't last and you get through it.
Well said. Thank you so much for coming on, and good luck with the next steps here with your film.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name again is Salvador Briggman. Thank you for joining me on today's podcast. You can go and check out some more information at crowdcrux.com, my website. And that being said, this episode to me just really opened my eyes to the fact that literally anyone out there can get funding from the crowd. It is not rocket science, It's something that you can actually do that's tangible. And even if you're in the creative category, I think that this is something that you can achieve. So a lot of the times, we'll do coaching calls and I'll have the student come to me and I'll ask them some really deep questions. So I kind of wanted to, start or kind of end this episode with just one or two questions that I think are really important to consider when you're doing a new project and when you're doing something that is going to, I think, in some ways have a very profound impact on your life. So first thing I want to ask you is that, in the past, when it comes to other projects, what has worked really well? What has really had a profound impact in your past? Maybe you've done different businesses. Maybe you've been an athlete. Maybe you've had results that you've generated in different areas. And no matter what it is, you've done something that has resonated and that have clicked. A lot of the times when we're talking on a coaching call, the student is trying to do too many things, right? You really want to narrow in and focus on what you can do really well. And whenever possible, to have partnerships or to have other people help you with the things that maybe aren't just in your realm of possibility. I'm really great at some things. I'm really bad at a lot of other things. The other thing that I'd really like you to consider, when it comes to, your future, when it comes to the things you're trying to do when it comes to crowdfunding is, number one, how will you know when you've really hit it, when you've really completed this goal? And it's so easy to think, oh, I'll know when I've raised this crowdfunding round, right? But is that really just the end of the vision? There's more that you can do when it comes to executing on your goals. And a lot of the times, it's actually when you've shipped out your rewards. A lot of the times, it's when you've actually been able to come out with a new version of the product. Sometimes it's when you've gotten your first glowing testimonial from a customer who absolutely loves and has fallen in love with your product or your service. What is that future experience? What is that thing that you specifically are looking for that you've done well, that you've achieved it? You know that even if, let's just say, you don't make $100 million company, you are so happy that you went down this path and in this journey. What is that experience that you're looking for? What is that? Is it validation? Is it just funding? Is it that you want to impact the world and get products out there to people all over the world? Is it the fact that you want to be able to have enough resources to come out with new products and iterations and that kind of stuff? Do you really just want to see your name everywhere and market the heck out of this thing? What do you really want? What for you is the answer to that question? How will you know when you've really, at least hit that big milestone when it comes to your goal? So these are just some important things to think about, in my opinion. And the other question that I really want to ask you, and this has more to do with you than it actually does with your project, is that you're going down this process. You're trying to get this project made. You're trying to get a product into the world. Maybe you're trying to start a whole new company. How does that serve you? Take a second to think about that. How does this pursuit, how does this thing that you're trying to do, how does this journey that you're on, this adventure, this exploration, how does that serve you? What is that going to enable you to do in the future? So many times we focus on the immediate, focus on what's next, right? Which is what I kind of base my entire career on. It's just step by step, how to walk you through the process, right? But there's something deeper that I noticed with every successful student I've had, which is that they somehow grow in the process and that they make this opportunity, this obstacle, this goal that they have, they allow it to serve themselves in a way that's much deeper than they maybe even realized in the beginning. And all of a sudden they go from someone who has never made a product, who has never raised funding before, to being emboldened, to being willing to shout from the rooftops and to really market their product, to have glowing testimonials and people who are raving, right, about their actual product or their service or their business or their project, and have those people spreading this online like wildfire. And it's almost like this own mini community. And what they kind of realize is that going through this process strengthened their resolve. It allowed them to actually commit to something, to finally get something done when it comes to this desire that they had in life. And that's why I say that I really do believe in the process of crowdfunding, and I really do believe the step-by-step formula that I've outlined when it comes to this is the right one to go down. However, it's about something deeper. So I really would like you to consider that. How does this process, how does this journey you're on right now, how does this adventure serve you beyond just the external goal? So I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast episode. If you want to talk about this more in depth when it comes to, for example, doing a regulation crowdfunding campaign, when it comes to doing a WeFunder campaign, when it comes to doing a Kickstarter campaign, doing an Indiegogo campaign, any other kind of crowdfunding, I really pioneered this and really tried to get this down to a formula for literally every single category when it comes to crowdfunding. So if you want to talk about how this will relate to you, how you can plan a project, what do you have to do next, what are the tools, the tactics, the strategies, the things you have to incorporate in order to be successful? Are you on the right path? Are you using the right platform? All these kind of questions, which if you get wrong, you might be wasting a lot of time. You can book a one-on-one coaching call with me, and we can do an intensive call, really walking you through the entire either step-by-step process or just giving you feedback if you're on the right way. Or a lot of students as well want to work with me in some way, and we can talk about that if that makes sense or not. There are a lot of different things we can discuss on this coaching call, but think of this as just kind of opening the door. Because in order to go through a new opportunity or to go through a new path in life, you got to open that door, right? And sometimes you're just kind of plowing along on your own for so long, and you don't get anyone's trusted eyes on your project, either because you're afraid of hiding it, either because you're afraid of other people copying it, either because you're afraid that people won't take you seriously. And this is an opportunity really to have, in my opinion, not only feedback, not only guidance and direction and mentorship, but also to really, I'm going to tell you how it is, man. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, if that makes sense. So if you want that kind of experience, you can go and book a one-on-one coaching call with me, and we can get that scheduled ASAP. The link to book one of these calls is crowdcrux.com/coaching. You can go to the link again that I'm about to mention and book a one-on-one intensive coaching call with me. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. And if you're not ready to do that, I also got a link for you to join my newsletter where you can get some of my crowdfunding tips delivered to you weekly. You can go to crowdcrux.com/newsletter and you can enter your name and email and join my free newsletter with crowdfunding tips. But if you're really ready to take action and you really want to make some big wins, I think that for me, the coaching calls are important to cement a lot of the ideas that we talk about on the podcast and also with my other materials, my book, etc. I hope that not only by the end of this show that you feel like this is something that is possible, you have more confidence. And finally, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you listening to this show. Leave me a rating and review. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.